one of the other groups that's been fighting against the New York Unsafe Act is NY2A, and we have two of their leaders here to speak with us. I'm going to start off with Lisa Donovan. Let's hear from Lisa Donovan. And Jake Palmateer.
Hi everybody, good morning. As George said, my name is Lisa Donovan, this is Jake Palmateer. We founded the NY2A Grassroots Coalition about a year ago. We have a single objective, and that's the defeat of the New York Unsafe Act. We have a four-part strategy that includes education, political action, nullification, and non-compliance. And I'm here today to talk about political action. Now, I have a question for you. Andrew Cuomo was elected in 2010. How many of you voted in that election? Okay, that's great. It looks like pretty much the whole room voted. That's amazing. Now, how many of you dragged, like Melody said, every friend, relative, coworker, everybody you know, everybody who you knew was on your side and thought like you? How many of you dragged those people to the polls that day? Okay, fewer. So as Melody said, this is really important. It is our responsibility to get those people out there. We have to not be afraid to kind of talk about politics. You know, politics is a dirty word for a lot of people. They just don't want to talk about it. It's one of those taboo subjects. But we can see what happens when we don't actually discuss the issues, right? We see what has happened to our state. We see what is happening to our country. So we have to be a little braver and talk about this stuff and drag our friends, neighbors, coworkers, whoever, to the polls. And Melody's idea is great about keeping registration forms with you and making an index card so that you can actually call those people who you helped to register to vote. That's great. But what I'm here to talk about today is that unfortunately, is not enough. It is critical that we do that. It's critical that you vote. It's critical that you bring everybody you know to the polls. But we need to do more than that. We have a winning message, okay? It's a message of liberty and freedom and adherence to the Constitution. And our problem is that it's a little harder for us to get our message out. The media is not on our side, and our opponents are very well funded. And so we all have to do more than just vote. Quick story, last summer I was helping a really great guy try to become sheriff in my county, and we lost. We did really well, but he lost by a slim margin. He was a great candidate. He is a former Marine, over 30 years of experience in law enforcement, very strong advocate for the Second Amendment, and endorsed by the Rifle and Pistol Association. But he was in a primary race running against the endorsed candidate, and the endorsed candidate usually has an advantage. As one of the volunteer coordinators, I can tell you that if we had had just 5 or 10 more committed volunteers, we would have won that election. Okay, our candidate got over 6,000 votes. If just 5 or 10 more of those people who came out to vote that day did a little more and volunteered for the campaign, we would have won. And so that's where this whole thing came from. The NY2A Grassroots Coalition has a campaign called More Than Vote. And what we're encouraging people is to do more than vote. How many of you have ever volunteered for a campaign or been involved in the political process? Okay, that's really great. Actually, a lot of these other forums, only a couple hands go up, so that's great. And for a lot of people, though, it's intimidating. And people say, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to get involved, I'm not comfortable with this. And I just want to say, you know, in 2010 was the first time I did anything for any political campaign. And actually, it was for Congressman Chris Gibson. I had not been involved at all, and I decided I really wanted Chris Gibson to be my congressman. So I got involved, and I did a couple of sign waves on corners, and we did some literature drops. And it was pretty laid back, it was pretty easy. And then in every election since then, I've done a little bit more. So that's what I'm asking, is for all of us can do a little more than we're doing now. Some of us can do a lot more than we're doing now. But, oh, there he is, Chris Gibson. So that's what this is about. Now, one of the best ways to be involved is to become a committeeman in your political party, okay? How many committeemen are here? Okay, see, just a handful. Why is that? Whenever you hear the Republicans have endorsed somebody or the Democrats have endorsed somebody, a lot of times people get angry if they don't like who it is. And they think, oh, you know, this nebulous party endorsed somebody I don't like. The party is the people who take the initiative to become a committeeman, okay? So the party is just you and your friends and your neighbors and the people in your communities. So if you don't like what's going on, or if you love your elected officials and you want to make sure that they stay in office, become a committeeman, okay? That's how you can ensure that they have the advantage of being endorsed by the party. And I'm pretty sure Delaware County, this is the year where it's an election every 2 years. So if you're interested in becoming a committeeman, my table's on the corner over there, and I can talk to you about how to do that. You can also go to NY2A.org to find information on that. There are a lot of other ways to get involved, though, okay? The best way to get involved, to get our message out, is going door to door, knocking on the doors. And, you know, we're called the NY2A Grassroots Coalition, okay? We're a grassroots organization. What does that mean? Who are the grassroots? The grassroots is us, okay? The grassroots are we, the people. NYR is also a grassroots organization. Our advantage is not necessarily in funding, okay? Our advantage is in boots on the ground, people, okay? So we can do this. We can knock on doors and we can get our message out. If you're not comfortable knocking on doors, you can be the person driving the one who runs to the door and turning the car around while they're up there. Believe me, it saves a lot of time. You can be the one mapping out routes for the people who are going to go door to door so that they can use their time most effectively. If they're in an area where they're not really familiar, show them the best way to get around. You could be the one delivering lawn signs. A lot of times people will sign up and say, yes, I want a lawn sign. How do you think the lawn sign gets there, right? Somebody's got to deliver it. You can be the one delivering absentee ballots for people who know they're not going to be around on election day but want to make sure they get their vote in. You can be the one doing phone banking, okay? From their houses, from your own house sometimes you can do it, or you go to a call center. We give you a script. It's very, very simple. So my point is there are a lot of ways to get involved. Social media, I should say also, websites. You know, there's so many ways that you can help. If you vote, we get one vote. If you bring your friends and neighbors and coworkers, we get 10, 20, 30 more votes. That's great, we need that. But if you volunteer in some way for these campaigns, you can potentially bring us hundreds of votes. And that is how we can win. That is how we can get Andrew Cuomo out of office and all the assemblymen and senators who voted for this act, okay? So that's what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to do a little bit more and to do more than vote in 2014. Now I want to make one other point. You know, in Delaware County, you guys have great elected officials, all right? So you're pretty happy where you are. Some of you may not be from Delaware County. But guess what? I'm from Saratoga County, same thing. I'm pretty happy with the way my people voted, but that's not good enough. I can't just sit back and say, well, okay, the people in those other districts have to solve their problems. Those elected officials in other neighboring counties and districts voted to strip my rights away and to strip your rights away. And we can shift our resources to those critical campaigns to make sure that we flip seats, okay, in the Assembly and in the Senate. So that's another way that you can get involved, is take the initiative to go a little outside of your district and help a neighboring district. And so what I'm asking you to do is, our website is NY2A.org. There's a button, there's a menu tab called More Than Vote, and there will be a green button there pretty soon that says More Than Vote. Click on that and give us your information, because as these elections heat up, we will contact you and we'll let you know how you can help. And so that's pretty much it. And I want to introduce Jake Palmateer.
Thanks, Lisa. A little bit ago, Melody Burns talked about the good kind of registration. And I want to talk for a few minutes about the bad registration. Anyone know what that is? When the Unsafe Act was passed, it set up a way to confiscate guns, and it did it in two ways. Now, we've all heard that phrase, registration is confiscation. And some people might say it's cliche. What does it really mean? Well, what the Unsafe Act did is it actually changed New York state law. And if certain firearms meet certain characteristics, maybe if they're black, maybe if they have a detachable magazine, maybe if a pistol grip protrudes conspicuously below the action of the rifle, things that actually make it a little easier for some people to shoot firearms, if it has some of these characteristics, you have to register it, according to the state, by April 15th. Once you do that, it's no longer yours. Within a generation or two, maybe three, those firearms will be gone. Because upon your death, they have to be removed from the state, or they have to be turned in for destruction. So the Unsafe Act sets up a pattern of long-term confiscation. They want to get rid of them. And they're patient, and they'll wait. They'll wait a few generations. Who in here has ever received a firearm from a grandfather as a gift? Or a father? Who's given them?
Thank you, sir.
It's completely egregious that the Unsafe Act changed the state law to prevent this from happening. They're disarming us, one generation at a time. The other way registration is confiscation is, it actually essentially just sets up a confiscation list. You put you're giving them the make, model, serial number of the firearm, and they may say, you can keep it. You know, like I mentioned, once you got it, you got to turn it in. But Governor Cuomo has already said that confiscation is an option. He's already said it. Assemblyman Steve McLaughlin got a document during the debate of the Unsafe Act before they voted on it. And on that document, there's a list of all the other things that the gun grabbers want to do. Things like micro-stamping, 50 caliber ban, registration of everything. Everything. And all it'll take is the next tragedy, the next Cuomo, and they could say, you gotta turn them in. There's a history of this happening in New York State. In 1967, New York City passed a comprehensive firearms registration law which required everything to be registered. They told the gun owners then that it was only going to cost $3 to register your firearm and that they would never confiscate them. Well, we know what happens when government tells us that something's going to stay the same price forever, right? Right, that's what happened. The price kept going up. Eventually, under the administration of Mayor David Dinkins, 2 decades later, they passed another comprehensive law that basically said, okay, everybody turn them in. This is also happening in California. In California, they actually go door to door now if someone ends up on a prohibited persons list. They've made nearly 4,000 visits to people's homes. And some of them are mistakes. Some of them, yes, they are felons and they're not supposed to have firearms. But some of them have been mistakes. And if they take your firearms, there's no guarantee you're going to get them back. And there's no guarantee what kind of condition they're going to be in when you get them back, if you get them back. In Canada, they had a firearms registry there, and it cost about $800 million for this firearms registry. And they ended up registering about 7 to 8 million firearms. It represented about 30% of all the firearms that were estimated to be owned in Canada. Less than 30%. Anybody see the pictures coming out of Connecticut from a few weeks ago? Well, how did you feel? Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think those pictures were staged because it turns out they're estimating now in Connecticut that only about 13% of firearms owners registered their so-called assault weapons. Less than 4% registered standard capacity ammunition magazines. So what that says is that their compliance rate is actually really, really low. We want to keep New York's really, really low. We want to keep it under 10%. And there's ways that we can do that. The first way is just simply not do anything. Stick your firearm in a closet. Passive civil disobedience. Just disregard this unconstitutional law. The second way, and this is what New York Revolution is, they're leading this fight, is active civil disobedience. Don't just stick it in a closet. Just say, hell no, I'm not going to register. Now, not everybody can be a Rosa Parks. We understand that. We understand that. And so NY2A doesn't advocate a specific course of option, or a specific course of action. What we do is we lay out options for folks. One of those is to tweak the firearm a little bit, add in a spur, take out a gas tube, and it makes it not meet the definition of a firearm, of an assault weapon under New York State law. Therefore, it doesn't have to be registered. And it can be a temporary thing, because eventually, we're really confident that the Supreme Court is going to come down on the side of justice in this, but it's going to take a few years to get there. And we want that assault weapons registry to fail, because we want to throw it right back in Cuomo's face and say, look, we're not going to follow your unconstitutional law. But as Lisa mentioned, and as Melody mentioned, just us in this room, we're not going to have enough people to get there. We need to be ambassadors. We need to talk to our friends, our family, our coworkers about voter registration, about the importance of not complying with the assault weapons registry, and about becoming politically active and aware. And that's what I want to leave you here with today. Talk to everybody. Get them engaged. Because we're going to win it in the end, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.